Today I am joined by Rich from Get Better. They're a Klaviyo email marketing agency specialising in e-com. They help brands unleash their full potential of Klaviyo to generate revenue through email marketing. Rich and the team tailor everything to meet your brand's needs, resources, and budgets. They will handle everything from you, from top level strategy, setting up your campaigns, designing creative templates and content, all the way through to troubleshooting issues that may occur. Rich is going to discuss everything in regards to Get Better, which was set up in February 2022, his history within marketing, why e-commerce, and why he is the legend that is Rich Evans. So over to you, mate.
Thank you very much. That's quite the intro. Did you memorize all of that?
I wish I could say I did, but I scripted some points.
But you absolutely nailed the pronunciation of Klaviyo, which most people get wrong. So kudos for that.
Thank you very much. I want to make sure I get that absolutely spot on.
Awesome. So yeah, I am Rich Evans. I founded Get Better. I think going back like a little way, I'd previous with agency. So I had launched what we thought was just a full service digital marketing agency and created a little bit of a monster previously with community management. And we ended up with 54 staff, a lot of which reported directly into me. The nature of the business was community management. So we would respond on behalf of brands on social media. And we're going back sort of 8 years, where brands are still kind of working out how to do social media and how to respond and how to use it and things. And yeah, it, long story short, nearly killed me. I ended up really quite mentally and physically unwell because we didn't really know what we were doing. We built a big monster of an agency with very little structure, made it up as we went along, basically. So I exited out of that agency over the course of a year. Kind of got to trying to work on myself and fixing the physical health issues. So I ended up with type 2 diabetes because I wasn't looking after myself. So got on to fixing that with diet and exercise. Went and climbed a mountain, which kind of tied in with that and the mental health thing, Kilimanjaro. Raised a load of money for a mental health charity. Started my own mental health campaign with my buddy Paddy. And then I'd spent a year on the dark side in recruitment because contractually, as part of the exit from the agency, I couldn't do marketing for a year, which was really fascinating, a real eye-opener, and kind of realized the true value of my network at that point I'd built up over this sort of agency activity. And then pretty much a year to the day that I started freelancing. And at that point, still kind of broad range, really, mixing with a few people that we'd maybe not been able to work with because of competitor issues with the previous agency. I worked with Yo they rebranded from Yo Sushi to Yo, so I had a lot of fun with that. We renamed a restaurant Yo Sushi, Bao Bun, Katsu Curry, Chocolate Brownie. The idea was to say we're not just sushi. And then COVID hit. And so all of these brands that I was working with to drive bums on seats and to drive sales in physical environment suddenly couldn't. And so I lost some work. I picked up some teaching. And I also then sort of traversed a little bit to say, well, if you've got all this sushi or these pies or this beer, these different pub brands and things that I've been working with, and you need to sell it, why don't we try and sell it online? And that was when I discovered Klaviyo. So I carried on consulting for 2-3 years, all the way through COVID and things, and trying to sort of doing a really good job of actually making the best of a really horrible situation for these brands. In a lot of instances, it felt like it was going to be a COVID thing. And then COVID would finish, everyone would leave their houses, and then we would see sales dry up. In reality, those brands, and I still work with, quite a few of them that we started e-com really in the COVID first lockdown. It's never really looked back. Start of last year, in a slightly different place, well, in a very different place mentally, physically, relationship wise, and all of those sorts of things. Just felt like I wasn't quite done yet. which then combined with an obvious need for this wonderful like piece of software, I was becoming a really expensive resource for writing content and building emails. The skills or the passion for it wasn't really on the client side, so that was where I thought there's an agency here. So started Get Better, start of last year.
And all that makes sense as to why the business itself is Get Better, I guess. It all sort of forms into that,
Yeah,
did it, Rich?
a little bit. I think obviously I'm a marketeer, so I couldn't just come up with something crap. And I didn't want it to be like, there's a real sort of, I didn't want it to be like a color animal, like an email address or a website that says we are insert name here sort of thing. So I got to thinking about different ways. And I think Get Better just came up because, I had to get better. And that's the idea, is we help clients get better, whether it's get better at doing it yourself, get better results, get better open rates. Did also think, that year in recruitment, maybe thought there might be a way in the future, so get better people. It kind of lent itself. And in hindsight, best sort of 250 quid I ever spent that domain, because it has been really useful and it does help people remember us.
Definitely. I'm not sure where to start, to be honest, in terms of all that, because you've done so much and gone through, so much as well, which you're so open to discuss, which is, as you've been through, obviously, like one of the biggest sort of first steps as you open up and discussing it. So I'm open to you, really, Rich. So where you want to start, mate? Because there's so much to talk about here. So where we talk about like the ecom world and the landscape, or we talk about everything you're sort of doing in Get Better and away from it. Like I'm open in terms of how you want to take this conversation forward, really, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose some of my best work, and I remember the recommendation when you were looking for guests and stuff, came about from a talk that I'd done that kind of sort of straddles them both, really. I use humour quite often, and so in quite sort of a horrible area, which mental health struggles and stuff is a little bit different. But yeah, I'm an open book with that, and I think actually it was that talking about it, because in terms of understanding my own mental health and things, I just thought it was me. And, I'd got, I was successful. Everyone could see how successful I was. Look at his fancy car and his wife and his kids, and he has a company, which means he has all this free time and he can do all these things and stuff. And obviously anyone that's listening or watching, or on the other side of the camera knows that is not reality. Like, it is a hustle, and there are perks, it is, you don't have to answer to someone and stuff, but it's a hell of a lot of crap as well, which anyone that's done it will fully appreciate. And so the idea of me not being okay was bonkers. And how can I moan about my existence when there's so many people worse off than I am? And it was actually a mate, Paddy, that I was helping a mate open a restaurant during that sort of fallow year between exiting one agency, working in recruitment, and starting up again. And he came in for his anniversary meal, and we were mates, but I hadn't probably seen him since I went to his wedding the year before. So he came into the restaurant, I bought him a drink, he had 3 sips and left. And the rest of the family carried on with this sort of anniversary meal. And I said to his brother-in-law and to his wife, I was like, what's going on? He goes, he's just can't handle situations and stuff. And I was like, right, well, because I've just got this, I'm gonna fix that. So I dragged him kicking and screaming to Costa, and he started talking about it, and I was like, this is like me too type thing. And then we just made that Costa thing a religion. Every week we'd meet up at Costa, and sometimes it would get really dark and deep. Other times we're both Everton fans, so that would be dark and deep. But
Yeah, it would be.
Or there'd be banter, because we're lads and football. And then it was in one of those Costa meetings that we decided, with this newfound mental strength, that we would we booked flights and paid a deposit to climb Kilimanjaro. Then went home and told our respective partners, and got a little bit of backlash, and then went into the training and everything, and off we went. But I think what that did is it kind of put me on a bit of a pedestal, because we did this whole campaign around it where I became someone that people would come to and go, so this mental health thing and that then. So and you'd find that blokes especially were awful at sharing. And so, I just got this open book policy. So if you want to ask me anything, then anyone can shoot. And sometimes people regret that, because that whole thing, oh, how are you? And I've got like a big hang up with the question, how are you? When we just say, yeah, fine, how are you? Yeah, I'm also fine. Where that's not a truthful answer. It's a bit like when the waiter comes to the table and says, oh, is everything okay with your meal? And even if it's shite, we go, yeah, it's fine, it's fine. So I give a really honest answer when someone says, how are you? And it's generally non-committal, and it'll be, I'm all right, I think. Or, actually, I'm really, really struggling. And you immediately see them like, oh, that's not the script.
No.
But I think through being through all that, what I've been able to do now is build the business I wish I worked in previously, where, there is none of that kind of, you've got to feel like you've got to show up and put on a brave face and not sort of have no chinks in your armor regardless, because, what I've built here is an agency where everybody feels like they can sort of open up, and there's opportunities to do that, and there's resources. We've got a EAP, which is an employee assistance program, so anyone can access counselling without having to get it signed off by HR. They've just got a link to sort it and things. And I think the way of the world now is, after four or five really turbulent years for everybody, it's almost bonkers to think that someone hasn't struggled with something.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough subject. I just say in terms of that discussion point, because people don't really like talking about it. It's always say like, yeah, blokes are terrible at it, and yeah, the ability to have someone near you you can have that discussion with and be so candid about it is something that everyone sort of ideally needs. That mate who can not pull you out of it, but just allow you just to be yourself and just say how you're really feeling, rather than worrying about being judged for having, whatever it is that you're sort of going through. It's hard to put into words, I guess. Maybe you do it very well in terms of articulating the times you've been through and where you've got to now.
Thank you very much. I mean, the charity that we did the climb for when we raised the money was called Chasing the Stigma, and that is the word is that stigma. And so I think normalizing the fact that not okay is okay, which is what we called it and things, is what needed to happen. And I think there's been a massive shift and movement in that, but it's still a bit of like, well, what now sort of thing. I think there's a generational thing. Like, I don't want to offend you, but I feel like we're probably similar age range and stuff, late 30s, or maybe not. But like, my dad is that sort of like, just keep calm and carry on. Like, well, something's broken, you fix it, And he worked with glass, and if he'd slice his finger off, and he'd just reattach it with glue roll and masking tape sort of thing. And the idea of sort of talking or opening up about anything like not feeling all right would just be bonkers.
Yeah.
And I think we kind of, that was our examples, but now we are generally as a generation setting better examples for our kids. So like, I've got two boys, and they very much, can talk about their feelings and stuff. And I want to maintain that all the way through, because
Amazing.
that is the key of being able to speak about it. So yeah, that's the culture environment I've tried to build here.
Absolutely. Okay, amazing. Well, I mean, I guess just going into the Klaviyo sort of piece and the email marketing piece, talk to me about like the day to day and how you got to where you are, like, today, in terms of the e-com world you've been in, and why e-com has been so good for you.
I think it's working in social for so long. Like, the difficult thing was always the return on investment and tangible and things like that. The beauty now is I'm in the complete opposite end of the world. I've gone from being like, the sort of Tony Hibbett's an obscure football reference, but Kyle Walker, scored his first ever goal for England, but he's been in the team for ages, but nobody kind of looks at him. And then Harry Kane, the all-time top goal scorer and stuff. I'm in Harry Kane's boots now, having been like previously in the sort of Kyle Walker boots, where I'm putting the ball in the back of the net all the time, because that's what Klaviyo does. It is that sort of conversion machine. So that's great, seeing the fruits of your labor and not having to try and sell it in, like, measuring it in engagement and brand awareness and stuff. But it also opens you up to that team, because, Harry Kane, as he laid one on for Kyle Walker, used to just being given those opportunities and not having to worry about the ball going into the net at the other end, sort of thing. So I think what I'm really enjoying is being a specialist agency in the ecom world, and then just what a community that sort of creates, because Shopify developers, paid media agencies and stuff, I can sort of help them appreciate that we make them look all better as well. And as an added bonus, they can recommend us and not worry about us taking any of the other work away, which is something that happens in marketing as well. So, yeah, I mean, we've got challenges. Being in North Devon is a challenge in terms of getting anywhere.
Yeah.
But also in terms of recruitment pool. So we're homegrown. Everyone that's taken in has come in with relatively zero Klaviyo experience and having to train them up from scratch, which is a difficult but a brilliant thing as well, because everyone does it our way. And yeah, I think I'm enjoying being the sort of the poster boy of the sort of marketing reports and stuff. And it's like, oh, look what Klaviyo has done for us this month. Where in reality, we're nothing without all the other factors.
Yeah. And going back to the team element, as you mentioned, what are the key sort of attributes you're looking for people to join your team? What is it that they need to come with?
It's 80% personality, and I've kind of gone on about this on LinkedIn and stuff. I think obviously skills and experience and things are great, but we've just finalized a recruitment process at the moment, which is actually going to roll into another recruitment process in October, November, we've decided.
Okay.
But we've had people apply for that role that have got some really great skills and quality. But when we've kind of reviewed and spoken and stuff, perhaps isn't going to be the best cultural fit, isn't maybe as much of a team player and things like that. And I think that really is our value here. I've never known a team environment like it, where everybody does sort of pull together and things. We're not all best mates, we socialize together and all of those sorts of things, but there's just a really good team culture. There's a lot of trust is kind of assumed, and it's there to be broken, as opposed to the old school way of like, if you do well and you pass your probation, then you can go and work from home one day a week, sort of thing. As far as I'm concerned, as soon as you come in, so we've got a new starter on Monday, Sophie. She needs to be in on that first day, but from there, as long as she gets the work done and the hours done, and we can see her availability on a calendar, do it where you want, do it from home, do it from South Africa like Patrick did start of last year, or I think that really is the way that you've got to work. Now you've got to assume trust.
Agreed. And talking about your recruitment past, how was those 12 months in recruitment? Talk about how you found that.
Awful start, because I almost like, I think I don't know if there's like a Men in Black pen that someone has for me that just sort of wipes my memory, because it must have wiped my memory in terms of starting an agency again and forgetting all of those reasons that I exited before, but there I was. And then having just finished recruitment and then worked as a freelancer for 2.5 years and then started an agency, I just must have forgotten everything I learned from recruitment, because I got to a point in sort of a few months in where I needed somebody, and I just took on the first person that came through the door. And then I made sort of that sort of assumed trust. I just made too many I would facilitate really poor behavior, because I've got a tendency to see the good in everything. So yeah, first 2 attempts at recruitment went badly. And then a CV landed on my desk from a guy that used to work for me and had started his own agency. I went, look, I don't know if this is any use to you. This guy called Patrick, and he sort of came in, and he's just the perfect form of a human. Like, he looks like a Disney prince, and he's South African, and he just never puts a foot wrong in terms of like human interaction and things like that. And he's just the yin to my yang, because I just, shoot from there. I've got ADHD tendencies and things like that, or traits. And so I really am probably not the best person to be the figurehead of a business. And so he is just, my right-hand man. So from the moment that he came in and suddenly I was making recruitment decisions with someone else, it's just been a dream. So yeah, we had an intern, Jack, who paid internship from university, which was brilliant. He had a head start because he'd been a student of mine when I was teaching during COVID, and then reached out, and I was like, well, I'm starting something, come and do a year here. He's like, great. And
Yeah,
like, yeah, the development and the change in him over the course of the 12 months was just spectacular to see. So he's gone back, but he's actually stayed on remotely. Um, and then, yeah, from Patrick, we had Tom, we got Ella, we've now got a new intern, Matt, who's sort of 3 months into his internship. And then we've got Sophie starts on Monday. And
brilliant.
actually, I've had Tom's notice today, which
Oh
is,
no.
but it's great news because
Okay.
Tom had a really tough start to the year. Oh, Siri is getting involved. Tom had a really tough start to the year, and so activated some of those things I mentioned we've got in place and stuff. And there was a sense of like when I did some reviews of all of the guys, because we were all guys at that point, there was just a bit of a sense of like, I don't know where I'm going or I don't know where I want to get to. And I use a coach because I just believe in all of that sort of stuff. So I
Yep.
brought my coach in and he did some work on goal setting and things. And then I keep up with Tom monthly anyway. And then he sort of said, well, actually, like the goal setting, I think I don't really know where I want to be, but I know it's not here. And I thought about Australia and I was like, well, I mean, so actually over the last 3 or 4 months, I've been helping try to facilitate how he can achieve that goal. And he's going. And it's
Wow.
obviously the shoes to fill and big shoes. You know, Tom is a fantastic member of staff, but I've known about it for 3 months, so I've been able to sort of succession plan for it. And actually, I got his notice today, but his replacement starts on Monday because we kind of knew the dates and things were going to
Yeah.
align. And just how brilliant that he's going to be able to go and do that. And, you know, we've helped facilitate it. And I think that's how really, there's not many jobs for life anymore. And I think so, really, from an employer point of view, I think being plugged into, yeah, what your employee needs today and what you need from them, but actually, where are their sort of future plans and stuff? And if you can facilitate that, I know that Patrick wants to emigrate again in sort of the next 3 to 5 years and stuff. And so, you know, we may even see Tom as the sort of figurehead of Get Better Australia once he's travelled around and settled down and stuff. You never sort of know, but I think by understanding your employees and not just where they want to be today or next year, but where they want to go to and being able to facilitate that, you can plan around it. And it's just much better than me finding out today Tom's gone in a
Yeah.
month and then having to start a process.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the culture we've got. And yeah, if you go back I went back on my LinkedIn when we were going to talk, and about 18 months ago, I was like, I want to start an agency, but I want it to be people first. I believe that you can be profitable and successful while still being a really great,
Yeah.
fundamentally a good place to be and work and stuff. And so happy after a few false starts that that is what we're building.
Love that, mate. And I must admit, like having the right people on board, especially because the level you're at what eight so people. That's all right. Eight people with you.
Yeah, so we'll be 8 temporarily and then
Yeah.
back to 7. Yeah,
But having the right people like on board right now is so important, isn't it? Especially if you're growing the business. They've got the right culture and values and visions, and they align with what Get Better is all about. That is going to be the best people for you long term as well. I think there's a lot of like studies around this as well, isn't there, about getting the right people on the bus early rather than just anybody on the bus type thing. It's that old analogy,
yeah,
isn't it? And making sure they're all driving towards the same thing. And, you know, when shit hits the fan, and we'll get on to talk about like challenges in terms of a business sense, like everyone just like pulled together in terms of making sure that that issue is fixed, however best to do it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the people are what drive this place, and so yeah, I'm just a sort of custodian, I guess, a sort of a steering the ship a little bit, but could not do it without the key pillars that we've got here.
And I guess the difference from what you're doing now, Get Better, to what you had previous when you grew that beast to 54 people, just night and day in terms of just the
Oh yeah,
company
that was
culture and
just
everything else around it.
yeah. I mean, I think I think we made the mistake of thinking that we were just like a little family and stuff. But then the volume of work, and we were recruiting 2, 3 people a week. And we used to joke, like, if you could get to Bideford, you could spell and you didn't carry a knife, like we could work with the rest. And so we just had all these people, and it's great because now there's all these people that once worked for me that sort of pop up in all sorts of shapes and forms and stuff. And there were some absolutely fantastic days, but we just had no structure. We had no, like the review processes and none of those things. And so we just never really just I can't really describe it. It wasn't a bad culture. It was a unique culture. It it was like it was a small business, but in a huge building with lots and lots of people, and everyone kind of knew everyone. And there was a lot of socializing together and things like that. Maybe more like classic marketing agency. Whereas here, there's definitely bonds, like really strong bonds and stuff. But it's it's difficult to know how to word it, but it's lovely.
Yeah. What would you say are the biggest challenges you're coming across, like day in, day out at the moment with Get Better?
Um, I think it's as any business. I remember it first time round and stuff. And when you're at that point of sort of 6 to 8 people, you're kind of big enough to be always taking on new clients and things like that, but still small enough to be very vulnerable if someone's off sick. If you're just not, you're one person away from catastrophe sometimes. And so I feel like we sail pretty close to the wind sometimes with regards to that sort of workflow. And we actually, probably went too far into that when there was just the four of us, me, Patrick, Jack, and Tom, and didn't maybe have we had the review processes and stuff, but we weren't executing them very well. And so it came to a bit of a head, and I did sit down and do some proper reviews with the guys, and everyone, I think, at some point over the previous couple of months had burnt out and not really known how to tell, because they could see everybody else around them was busy and they didn't want to be a burden. So we put in a weekly meet, just a 15-minute meet, and basically your main sort of agenda is, where are you out of 10 work rate wise? And what that did is it could sort of say, well, I'm a 7, and then your mate next to you is a 9. Well, anything I can do to take off your hand so that we're both 8, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And now that's sort of just lived on, and we have that, and it's great because if anyone is worried on like a Thursday or a Friday, like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to get this done, and I don't know how to ask because everybody seems busy. Well, on Monday afternoon, you've got your forum and you're able to talk about it and stuff. It's also great when sort of new people coming in and go, I'm a 6. I don't know when this will be published, but Sophie, who's starting on Monday, I know for a fact by this point on her second Monday, she'll be like, I wish there was a bit more to do. Like, I feel, and then if this gets published even 2 weeks after that, I'll have told her, enjoy it while it lasts, because it won't. These things do build up. I think as well, like our quest for organization and planning is only as good as the client's appetite for the same. And so, we try and be as organized as possible, but we know we're always sort of vulnerable to a client going, oh, just a thing. MD's just asked if I can send this email yesterday, and still doing as good a job as that and being as diligent and compliant with it as we would be if we were planning something for 2 weeks' time. So, I don't want to say the clients are an issue. I love my clients, but the clients are an issue.
Yeah. How do you think you've been able to become almost like the go-to in terms of what you do in terms of email marketing for e-commerce? Like, apart from obviously just being incredible what you do, like, what has set you apart?
I mean, I think the fact that it's all we do, we don't make anybody, and we'll say if we don't think we're the right people to do it. I had a call with a chap yesterday in North Carolina, and I'm what I'll do with any partner is, and I'll give you the QR code to my calendar as well, is I'll give anyone an hour of my time. And if they're either on Klaviyo or willing to move over to Klaviyo, it's worth an hour of my time to sort of talk to you. And so I was talking to this chap yesterday, and I'm kind of seeing as I'm going through, I don't think he's got the traffic and the revenue and the total sort of size of D2C, big on Amazon, not so much on D2C, to really justify paying us long term to do anything, because we are only as good as those chances that are being created by traffic to the website and paid ads and things like that. And so it's me saying to him, and it almost ends up, it's like it's a reverse psychology thing where I'm like, I don't think you're best placed paying us to do it, but I'm more than happy to give you all the pointers as to what you should be doing. And I'm not going to try and do the accent, but in the end, we are going to do some work, but very, very low key for 3 months of his peak business, which is Q4. And then we'll sit down in January and go, look, if you want to go to the moon, your machine is good now, but you also need to think about these other elements. And I think it's that honesty and transparency that means that when our partners, which is where 80% of the work comes, is from recommendation from other agency partners or other consultants or things like that, it's because they know that they're going to be looked after. And that's the same for me. Like if I'm going to introduce someone, there are some brilliant pieces of software out there with some terrible account management and customer service and things like that.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter how good, I was going to name check them, but that's probably harsh.
Don't do that.
How good LF are, the fact that I know they're going to get hounded by the reps, into submission, is going to reflect badly on me. And so I think it's that sort of take really nice care. And the fact that we're not an out the box, we don't have a bronze, silver or gold package. If someone comes, I still operate as a consultant because I truly love doing that. So 8 days a month, I try and fill with consultancy work, and the rest of the time I spend driving the agency.
Yeah.
But, I've got relationships with clients where there's a really talented or enthusiastic person in the marketing team, but no one there to really run them, but they want to do Klaviyo. So my existence there is I'm a coach. I get on a call, and rather than just go in and do it, I talk Olive through doing it and the results are brilliant, just as good as we'd have generated if I'd just taken it on as an outsourced. But it's a much more sustainable way of developing your Klaviyo strategy. And I know then that they really appreciate that approach. And so in a world where they've maybe actually cut back on quite a few things, they haven't cut back on me because it's sort of proved its value. We don't do contracts, so we let our work do the talking. So how long I can continue with that, with the responsibility of more people, I don't know. Accountants aren't the biggest fans of it, but I haven't fallen foul of it just yet. So I think that's nice. And then, just being really good and conscientious at what we do. I struggle with imposter syndrome hugely. Okay. And I used to have a really toxic relationship with my imposter syndrome, i.e. it would just cripple me with anxiety and I'd resent it, and it was just part of the whole mental health, learning a bit about myself. Now I love it because it's actually what makes me really good at what I do, because I'm that fearful that all my clients are going to leave me and all my staff are going to leave me, that it makes me so good at what I do, and it makes me take care of the team and it makes me take care of the clients, because it's exhausting sometimes, but I've got that weird sort of step outside of myself, out of body, see that is actually what drives me.
Yeah. That's a huge thing you hear from most founders and leaders of businesses, that imposter syndrome, isn't it? And I know that I've definitely had it and have it, I should say, actually, rather than saying I've conquered it, because I still have exactly the same thing of like, am I as good as what we say we are? Am I going to be able to find you that talent that's going to help you propel your business forward? Or is it just luck? Am I just getting lucky over and over again? Or what is it? And you actually got to really actually understand that if you follow the right process, you believe in what you do, and you can put those processes in place to help you, it's just going to make your life so much easier, isn't it, down the line, and allow you to grow. Your clients will grow with you, and just the opportunities will keep coming, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And clients leave. We break up with clients if I can see that we're not going to return our investment. I've got one client, absolutely lovely, and I know that 80% of the reason is because they just like having us around and like having us to bounce things off, and they know that if we didn't do it, they would never do it. I don't think it doesn't return on investment the same way that our other clients do and things. But as long as I'm honest and I know that I've said that to the client, then
Yeah.
who am I to sort of challenge that they want to keep us around? I think back on like the you sort of I Professor Steve Peters, the guy that wrote the Chimp Paradox, which is a book that I just swear by. It like just helped me understand how I'm wired up and the different parts of my brain. I think he said that something like 22 or 23, our brains are formed. That's it. There's nothing else you can do to sort of change the, you can keep building certain areas, but it's kind of formed. So anything we've like got, whether it's a bit of imposter syndrome or whatever it is, it's there. And so it's just about managing it and building a relationship with it. Same as like anxiety and, understanding that that's just a mechanism for protecting us against something that we perceive as a danger. It's rationalizing what that danger is and whether it's actually a danger or not. I did it last night. I was petrified that new starter on Monday wasn't going to start. She'd had a week off work, was going to go back to employer. He was going to make her an offer she couldn't refuse, and then we'd be and I didn't sleep. And but I communicate to my partner, and she's like, "Here we go." You sent her a card the other day with the Dunelm vouchers. She sent me this message. She loved it. I was like, "Yeah, I know." And I was like, "She joined a new client call on Friday, didn't she?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know, but." And then I got a message from her this morning, just sort of saying, "Oh, gone back to work yesterday. He's found my replacement. Can't wait to get started, and everything's okay again." But I just got to accept that that's me. And actually, all of those little things that we've done between offering the job and the first day are actually all because I have that sort of wiring in my head. But it's actually what makes this a really, really great place to work. And even before that first day, she's buzzing.
Yeah, probably why makes you such a great boss. Probably why clients like working with you. All that sort of like rolling, and you probably don't like, I don't know if you like taking compliments or not, Rich, but that's probably why like people enjoy working for you and why people almost gravitate to you, because you are just so honest with it, and you just say it as it is, and there's no BS with any of it. It's this is who I am, this is what we are, and if you want some great results, work with us. If you want to work in an amazing environment, come join us. And just, that's what I know we've only spoken like 2 times maybe, but I could go down the pub with you and talk probably crap about, I'm a Man United fan, so I'm not in.
We'll avoid football then.
Yeah, I'm not quite relegation battle, but I'm also not winning the Premier League. That's a low blow. I didn't mean that, Rich, but
it's a fair one.
Yeah, but it's true, mate. Like that's obviously why you're doing such great things, and why someone mentioned you come on this podcast is because you've stuck in that person's mind with what you talked about. And I've gone through nothing I wanted to talk about in the podcast today because we've gone off in a completely different tangent.
I've got your questions here. Let's tick some of them off before we finish. Let's make it, bring it round.
No, I think like for me, like one of the biggest things I'm getting which I think also is another great thing to go through now, is around like if you were using your consultant's hat right now, I guess, going into a brand and office, and they're like saying, okay, we need to grow from 25 to 40 people. We need to hire in this teams. Like, how would you advise that person to, one, do it, and two, make sure they find the right people?
We talking agency or another agency like
either an agency or brand, whichever.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going into a client tomorrow, and they're an e-commerce. Well, they make pies. They're called Chunk of Devon, and brilliant pies, by the way.
Yeah.
And so they were one of those clients that just before COVID, I think, got in touch with me as a new kind of freelancer, and it was, could you teach my wife how to do social media? Simon, who's the owner.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, yes, but what for? Well, we want to sell pies online, more pies online. I was like, how many pies do you sell at the moment? He has none. I was like, okay, well, look, I'm happy to come in and do it, but I got under the hood, and he was always very skeptical of me and anyone that's being cheesy salesman sort of thing. But it was, I think you've got to really understand like a North Star, where you want to get to and things like that, and then break that down into sort of more achievable
Yeah.
goals. And so that I love the story of Chunk because I'm about to finish there. They're canning me, but because over the last 4 years, we've gone from no e-commerce presence to an e-commerce presence to a version 2 whereby now I'm handing over to a new guy that sort of had a hand in recruiting and stuff called Matt, who's going to be the e-commerce director. And that
Wow.
project then finishes for me. But I think it's understanding a sort of a longer term goal, like where you want to get to, and like measuring things in headcount and people and stuff. Is well, why? And actually, is employing people even the best way to go? I think if you're small like we are now and you've got aspirations to grow, because the guys say, look, where are we going with this? And I'm going to sit them down on October the 3rd, I think it is, and go, it's up to you, because you've got to have pillars, I call them. I appreciate the kind words and things. I don't take them very well. It's a bit icky. But it's really, I think, the real quality that I've learned is surrounding myself with good people so that they can fill in the gaps that I absolutely have. I get so invested and so anxious in the imposter syndrome, all of those things, that really 5 or 6 is the maximum people I can be responsible for. So I think pillars to say, right, well, Patrick is now responsible for 2 or 3 of the people. So that then opens up the sort of gates a little bit to go, okay, well, what's his capacity? And then what pillars
Yeah.
does he need? And structure is by far and away the most important thing. I think then with recruitment, I think a big thing that stood out from the people that I spoke to in this process was just the way that we approached the job description. And between us and ChatGPT, we really sort of carved out something that really felt like it was from us. We're expecting like people to apply and personalize a CV and put a cover letter and things, and then we're putting out something that we've downloaded from an Indeed template and just changed the sort of bullet points at the top. Bollocks, like that's not it. So we kind of put that in there. We published the salary bracket because we've got nothing to hide, because the other person or the other 2 people that are in that position are also in that bracket. And so there's a transparency sort of feel there. I think there isn't really any legislation, but there should be. I think if you're putting a job advert out, it should now be just fact that you publish at least a banding. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The only reason you're not doing that is because you've got no confidence in it, or you've got people in the business that aren't being paid in that banding to do the same job, and either of those 2 things are shit.
Yes.
So that is something that I think is but yeah, just kind of understanding the limitations and not trying to skip to that sort of North Star where you want to be in and take in each quarter as it comes. I have one strict cut goal, and that's I don't mind growing headcount and don't mind growing clients and stuff as long as every quarter I look back and we've maintained a 50% GP. Because I know that if that's in place, everything else will fall in line with it. And yeah, just
that's
treat
your
people.
why. That's your why, is it? That's your measure, if you will.
Yeah. That tells me that whether there's 4 of us, 8 of us, 20 of us, it's sustainable. We're not kind of busy fools. We analyze the hours that we spend and things. I think the most crucial thing as well, and it doesn't maybe bode well for a recruiter, but it should do, is keep staff. Like it's actually really easy recruiting for a business like ours, because the things that we offer in the sort of environment and the flexibility and stuff is still, especially here in North Devon, not the common thing. And so actually, we're quite an attractive proposition just because we've got those nice things in place. Free Wi-Fi and free parking and a laptop shouldn't be like perks. They should be standard. The perk should be ultimately autonomy and trust and be treated like an adult.
Yeah. I'm only putting this face because the amount of times I've seen someone list their first benefit as 28 days annual leave, including bank holidays, as their top benefit. You're like, you're just never going to win. You're never going to get anybody who is excited about getting the bare minimum that you're meant to give an employee. Like, that isn't a benefit, mate. Like, that you're just doing that. You don't really, and this is maybe going a little bit too far, but you don't really care about your actual your team culture you're building. You just want bums on seats who can come and deliver a service, and
Yeah,
if they stay, that's great. If they leave, I'll just replace them. Like it's not. They're
yeah. I
not.
think when
Thankfully, we don't deal with many of them, but the amount of job ads you still see that is the top one. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, recruitment isn't cheap. Whether even if you're not using an agency, it takes anyone 3 months to get up to speed. And, I've got the data to prove that. They over index on hours for the first 3 months with clients while they build confidence and train and things like that. And
Yeah,
then you start to hit. So if someone only stays for 6 months, you do well to be net zero on them. um,
yeah,
and yeah, I was football dadding the other day and hearing a conversation between two parents from the opposite team, and it was one that was just sort of saying how tricky it had been to take a holiday this year because they're waiting for an operation and it's going to need a week at home to recover, and they've got to take that week off as holiday. And like the other person they were speaking to is look, none of them sort of tackled the fact that that's bonkers.
yes,
Like, that's not a holiday, that's leave. And kind of phased return. If you can do a bit of work from home, great. If not, don't worry about it, sort of thing. And I've got a brilliant conversation on text message with Jack. Jack was our intern, and he's just brilliant, and he's got this
yeah,
big mullet, and he's never seen a single film. Like, I messaged him today saying, "You seen Titanic?" Nope. You seen Anchorman? Nope. But I've seen Anchorman too. And like just a really really nice guy, but so many quirks. He there's a WhatsApp conversation which if I'll screenshot it you, and if you do like a blog or something, I'll send it to
yeah,
you, because honestly, the conversation with him where on a Sunday night he messaged me saying, "Oh, you're Rich, not feeling all that well. Is it okay to work from home tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" He goes, "Just really bad stomach cramps." I was like, "Yeah, look, don't work from home if you're well enough to work. If not,
yeah,
just be at home but be sick and recover." And then I woke up at like, my alarm goes off at 5:30. I'm an early riser, and I got a message from it at 3 o'clock in the morning. It goes, "Hi Rich, in A&E, if I get out, I'll log on from home as soon as I'm back, but it probably won't be 9 o'clock. Is that okay?" And I'm like, "Shit, mate, like what?" And it turns
yeah,
out he had appendicitis and he had to have his appendix out. But honestly, I'm sort of talking him down and saying, "Look, don't
yeah.
like work is
Rest.
not an important thing at this point." But I just think that everyone has been conditioned to know, I don't
Yeah,
know. It baffles me.
yes. I would also agree with that, and yeah, I've seen many of story of similar where a boss is like, "No, you've got to be in." And they're like, "Well, no, I'm literally in hospital or something's happened," or yeah, it's
I
very
get this. I get there's other industries where, like, if a machine has to run for 8 hours a day and you're not there for an hour to run that machine, it's a problem.
uh,
But in my industry and the industry that we're talking about and to, it really isn't an issue.
yeah,
Everything is automated. So I quite enjoy the conditioning period when someone comes into the business, and that first sort of thing is like, "Oh, I've got someone coming to look at my dishwasher at 3 o'clock today, so I'm going to start at 7, leave at quarter. Is that okay?" And I'm like, "I don't care. Like, as long as the work gets done, and when you send me a report next week, it says that just mark it in the diary so we don't book you into a meeting by accident. But just
yeah,
do what you got to do. Like,
yeah.
just get it done." Um, yeah, it's quite funny because it's like a conditioning period. Yeah,
Especially if people aren't used to it. I spoke to someone the other day who do 4-day working weeks, and they'd have every Friday off. And I spoke to one of the new employees, and they're like, "I'm just so used to just working 5 days a week that I literally haven't been able to for the first like 6 weeks understand how I'm only working 4 days a week." And they still sometimes like log on to try and do something, and they're like, "No, it's 4 days a week. Like, stop." It's the same
but
idea,
even
isn't it?
with those 4 day weeks sort of thing, why not just make it an option? Why like enforce it? I think what apparently we are. What was it called? I was at Ecom Collab Club, and I was talking, and the people before me were at I think it was Bundle Builder, Async. So asynchronous or something like that. That's what we
Yeah,
are, but it's a very fancy, like, where it's just you get it done when you want to get it done, and you can wrap around real life around it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's what we do.
Mate, thank you so much for joining me. There's so much more
No
we can
probs.
talk about. Maybe of an episode 2, just you and I going through it, mate. But just thank you for your time, Rich. And you're doing incredible stuff at Get Better, and sounds like Sophie's going to come into a great role on Monday. And
If she turns up.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Hope that
All right,
comes
thanks
off
for having
really
me,
good.
and good luck with the podcast. It's been a
Cheers,
pleasure.
mate.
Cheers.
Appreciate
Bye.
your time.